Hi fans, I'm the PC Expert Amateur, and we're going to take a look at the Shenzhen Yuanran Technology Company Limited's PCI case slot fan bracket with two U buckles. And this is to hold fans in place near the bottom of your case in a PCI case slot to cool off your graphics card, your motherboard, certain parts nearby. Sounds like a good idea, right? Well, let's take a look at it. First of all, this is the main part. And as you can see, they didn't anodize or otherwise chemically alter the color of this metal because you've got that missing paint there. And then there's that one right there. So yeah, kind of annoying, but oh well. They didn't package it properly. Well, actually, they kind of didn't, and they kind of did. Number one, they sent it in this plastic bag, which, if you can see, the plastic bag now has a hole in it from that. But they had the two U-buckles in here with the screws. So on the bright side, the U-buckles are not damaging anything, but the big piece is. That's the bad news. And the screws are in there, or bolts, whatever you want to call them, doing whatever these little things do to a U-buckle, which presumably over enough time and enough jostling would cause the paint to come off of these things too. Now, they don't just give you regular fan screws. They also give you a couple of mounting screws to mount it in the slot. The I consider these to be U brackets, but they call them U buckles. And as you can see, the holes are oblong, and that's for a little bit of slide adjustability to the distance between the fans, just in case maybe you've got some oddball sizes or something like that. So I'd like to show you how you put this together. I do need to point out to you that if you've got a fan like this Noctua A12 by 25, and it doesn't matter whether you're using the regular Noctua corners or their gasket, it's going to be a problem because there's only about 26 millimeters of space in here to mount something. And so if you try to force this, it's just, it doesn't go in. Now, if you have, like I've got it with corners and gasket, the best thing is just remove the gasket because you're not going to need the gasket for this. The gasket is to fill up the gap between the fan and whatever it's connected to, like the case or the radiator. So if you do that, now you have enough space. It's pretty tight, but it works. But that's beside the point. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to pause this and then I'm going to attach a couple of fans to this so you can see what it looks like. Now, unless your name is Doc Ock and you've got mechanical arms to help you to screw in all of the screws at the same time, screw each one of them in part way, because what's going to happen is because of that extra millimeter of space, if you screw in one all the way, it's going to remove the possibility of centering the bracket hole with the fan corner hole. So keep it loose so that there's some play so you can get them lined up, and don't screw in that one all the way because you could have the same thing happen over here. Now there isn't a fourth one because on this side they didn't give us one. There's the one there, there's the one there, and the one there. Now I'm going to add the U-buckle like this. Okay. And then you add on the next one because it's going to be like this in the slot in the back of the case. You add another one over here. You don't want to tighten up these screws all the way, or bolts, whatever you call them, because you want to have some play to make sure that you can get them connected optimally. So make sure to leave them loose. And once you've got everything in place on this side and on this side, then you can tighten them all up. Okay, so this is what it looks like. And make sure that you get the cables coming out the right area. You don't want them to be against the bracket. You don't want to have them sandwiched between the fans. So they can come out on this end, they can come out on this side. They can even come out like this. Doesn't really matter so long as you have enough slack to be able to get to the header on your motherboard or to your hub or whatever it is you're using. So as you can see, that's what it looks like. Now, I was curious to see what kind of an impact it would have on my graphics card, because my graphics card is mounted vertically, and there are a couple of impediments that makes it more difficult. Number one, I discovered that this tab is a little bit too long.
Need to ask for your help. I'm sorry. On December 11th, 2024, Amazon terminated me and used false accusations against me. And on December 17th, I had my left shoulder operated on. I'm getting a lot better. I can do some things with my hand and my arm, but it's still pretty limited. If you could please help me out by liking, subscribing, sharing, commenting, and turning on notifications for my channels, that would really help. If you want to help me financially and you can afford to, you can go to my Glenn's Fast Reviews and you can do a super thanks as a donation there. If you want to donate on a monthly basis, you can become a member there. And or you can go to patreon.com/GLENNMII. So thank you for that. Also, I'd like to say thank you to bleepingcomputer.com for allowing me to post messages on their forum about my videos. Thank you so much. And don't forget to visit them. They offer a lot of wonderful resources for people who are using computers. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
The problem in my Morpheus is that it's a little bit, teeny little bit too wide. So if I remember correctly, it's like 15-30 seconds in width and 13-30 seconds in length. So it's just a little bit too wide for the Deepcool Morpheus's tab slots. And then I tried it in, it's either a micro or mini, and it doesn't have very much clearance at all behind the motherboard tray. So I could get it into the tab slot, but I couldn't get it in far enough to be able to mount it in the slot. So that was frustrating. I do have another case in which this does fit properly, and I will show you. The riser cable for this case happens to have a PCB that is rather large, and I'm sure under some circumstances it would be very useful, but for my needs, it's in the way. They could have made it smaller, darn it. So the problem is, number one, it's in the way. Number two, because I have cables going out the back through the bottom slot, I can't mount it the way I wanted to. So I either have a choice of, it's mounted like this, right? And I either have a choice, it's in the bottom slot, and that means it's got a little bit of clearance between it and the power supply. Now, the power supply is going to be producing some heat, and it's going to be acting as a barrier. Now, I actually mounted these the wrong way. I know let's just pretend these are reversed, okay? But it would be blowing air up like this. There is some clearance, but not enough. If I put it in the second slot from the bottom, well, then this fan will be really, really close to the PCB, and that'll effectively block a fair amount of the wind that is coming up from this fan toward the graphics card. Now, the other problem is that my card is vertically mounted. And because it's vertically mounted, instead of the hopefully cool air that's shooting up from these fans going into the fans of my graphics card, they're just sliding by the front and the back of my graphics card along that surface where the fans are. So this is the graphics card. So the air is just going like that, like that. So it doesn't help. And in fact, I tested it. I ran Furmark for 30 minutes without this in. I ran it also for 30 minutes with this in. And the results were so close as to be almost identical. In other words, with a vertically mounted card, at least in my scenario, it was a waste. It did not help me. Now, if you've got a graphics card, and the graphics card, we'll just pretend this is a graphics card, okay? The graphics card is mounted like this in your case, with with it blowing the air up into the graphics card. So the card itself is, up here with the GPU and everything. And the graphics card fans are these, and they're blowing that way. If you have this underneath that, it's blowing the air straight into those fans. That would work much, much better, at least in theory. Now, again, the power supply is a problem. Now, I could relocate the power supply. It's more of a hassle than I'm willing to deal with right now, but it would be a possibility. Another nice thing about this is that you can not just use this for a 120 millimeter fan, you can use it for a 90 millimeter fan or even an 80 millimeter fan, and then you can add on. In addition to that, say for example, you want to install this and you realize, oh no, something over here is blocking something, so I can't use a 120. So you could put a 90 or an 80 or something over here, and that would deal with that problem. Or maybe the obstruction is over here, so you could put a 90 or an 80 over here and then attach a 120 over here. Or heck, you could add an even larger fan if you can fit it in your case. But if you don't have enough clearance, if you put a fan like this inside of your case, well, then just shrink it down to a 90 or an 80. Or if you've got lots of space, you could put a 140 on here, as long as it's 25 millimeters thick and doesn't have cushions that are so big that they're going to get in the way, like on this Noctua and some other brands as well. It's not just Noctua that's a problem. And even if you don't have a graphics card, potentially this could also help you if you are having problems keeping your motherboard, your components on your motherboard cool enough. You could have this directing air up and cooling off that whole assembly. And that would be nice. And hey, if you've got a case that's long enough from front to back that you could put in another fan over here, well, then buy yourself a package of some more. Like I got these from Tusser, and both of these things were on Temu, but you can add more to be able to add more fans on. And you're thinking, well, how can I add different sizes, or how can I add big sizes? As long as you've got them torqued down enough without breaking the plastic of the fans, you can use those brackets to add on as well. It's like $3 or something like that. So a couple more things you should be aware of. Because the tab of this bracket did not fit into the tab slot for the Deepcool Morpheus, and I didn't want to shave off some extra metal so I could fit it in there, not to mention into that mini ITX or whatever it was. What I did is, in order to mount it to the case itself, I used a twist tie, and that held it in place on that side. And then I put a graphics card support that's basically just this bolt in a shaft, and it's got rubber on both ends, and then I just adjusted it to the correct height, and that was fine for the experiment. Didn't want to do it like long term, and the reason is the bottom of the support was on one of the fans, and I just didn't like that idea. I thought it was going to slip in there and break this expensive Super Flower Mega Cool 140. And the other thing I wanted to point out, if you are planning on, I'm going to put it in the bottom slot, make sure you have clearance. I wanted to put this in the bottom slot of this case, and I discovered that, well, gosh, I can't. It literally could not be done because 25 millimeters is more than the clearance for the bottom slot. And then, of course, there's the problem of, well, there's a lot of ventilation on this power supply shroud, but if there's a power supply down here, then part of that is going to be blocked. So it's going to be trying to suck air from a place it can't get air from. Ideally, you want to have it mounted with enough space so that it's not sucking hot air, it's not sucking no air. It's, you're going to have to find the right balance. But this is what it looks like. And you can see that it's kind of sagging on this side. And, so you might want to put some kind of a support under there. And I used both of the bolts that were provided for mounting it. I hope you can see all this. And so it would be blowing upwards onto whatever you've got in here. Is it perfect? Is it ideal? No, but it may be what you need. And so I hope this video helps you out. If you have any questions about this product or maybe suggestions about it, please leave them down in the comments. I'd be happy to see that. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.